Hey, we are back with another episode of Go FUD Yourself. Today, Kiara has also gone bald like me, and her name was changed to Mikhail. So Kiara/Mikhail, welcome. One of my favorite guests. It's great to have you here, man.
Good to be here.
Doing all right?
Doing great. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a good time to be in crypto. You know, what we've seen over the last few weeks has been exciting to talk about.
It's a rare bright light in what otherwise has been a lot of darkness in the last little bit, especially in the news cycle. So that's exciting. I think you and I must be the only two not in Turkey right now.
Yeah, definitely feeling the FOMO. Everybody seems to be over there. Like everybody,
having a blast.
Yeah, everyone's having a blast.
I don't know how I opted out of this one. I looked at it. I just got back. I was in Canada for a month and just got back. And I was like, most people don't go to the Turkish conferences, or at least they hadn't in years previous. So I was like, I'm probably not going to miss much. And then all of a sudden I realized literally everybody I know is going there except for me. And
there's so many conferences there too. And more from the country perspective, they're working pretty hard right now to try to get off of the gray list. I don't know if you've been keeping up with them from a regulatory perspective, but they're trying to get buttoned up.
Well, and it's good. I mean, obviously they're trying to turn the country around. It has been essentially a dictatorship there for quite some time. So, I mean, there's a lot of threading a needle to figure out the gray list and how to get off of it and make sure that their banking and financial system is above board. But man, the population of Turkey, obviously there's some fairly notable individuals and groups that are of Turkish descent, but there's an incredible developer community there and a really good groundswell, I think, of projects starting, and there's a pretty cool community in Turkey. Apparently, it's even better than I ever thought, based on all the photos and everything I've been seeing since people got there. Anyways, today, although there's a lot of exciting things that are happening in the market, this is going to be, in an indirect way, one of those evergreen episodes that I talk about all the time. We're going to talk, actually, okay, so just rewind a second. On Friday, we were saying FU to a lot of scammers and exploits and nonsense that was happening, guys that were catfishing old ladies and stealing their money via crypto and all this other crap. And the purpose of that conversation, as well as the purpose of today's, is yes, there's a lot of excitement going into changing market cycles, and there's a lot of kind of momentum and narrative starting to build about ETFs and now BlackRock and the ETH ETF, and we're talking about the halving in 24, and maybe the economy is not as bad as we thought. All of a sudden people are saying soft landing again, which I find very hard to believe, but whatever. When that happens, this type of crap that we're going to talk about today proliferates very quickly, because you get a rush of people that aren't your constant OG kind of crypto participants and are unfortunately oblivious to these scams. Now, I'll save some of the conversation for Mikhail, because obviously Mikhail is a good friend of ours from CertIC, and they focus a lot and have a lot of expertise on these types of things. I actually plugged one of your reports, one of CertIC's reports the other day too, because there's really, really, really good macro reporting that comes out of CertIC. And I was suggesting to our viewers, like, check it out if you want to see kind of the state of the security of the space and things to watch out for and things to know. CertIC is a great place to start. But today we're going to talk a little bit about some crypto scammers in China. We're going to talk about Poloniex a little bit. Somehow we're going to talk about CZ again, because no matter what, he always makes it into the news, good, bad, or ugly. A false BlackRock. We're going to talk about XRP ripping. I have some pretty good ideas why that is. There is a bunch of co-founders leaving a crypto app. What else? Yeah, that's pretty much all we're going to talk about. But we're going to talk a little bit at the front about some of these things. Just make sure you're protecting yourself and being aware and just being critical of things that seem too good to be true, because often they are. Okay, we'll play our little video and we'll get going. Let's go. All right, we're back. Okay. Oh, I forgot. Quick shout out to Tashi. They're our merch sponsor today. I'm a big fan of hoodies. So if anybody wants to be the merch sponsor and send a hoodie, I'd be really excited. We're also a live show Monday to Friday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern. We're on all the major venues. We don't commercialize the show. So please help us spread the word and support new users and old alike, I suppose, in the space as we go into the new cycle. Like, share, subscribe, bookmark, do all that crazy stuff. Help us out. All right. Mikhail, my friend, how long have we been hearing about China flip-flopping, banning, unbanning apps, crypto, all of these other, like, this has been going on for as long as I can remember, no?
Same. I mean, ever since I've been in crypto, they're always making headlines. It's a large, like, second largest economy, right? So obviously it's going to make headlines anytime they say anything good or bad about crypto. But, here we are again discussing China.
This one is kind of like, I suppose, a little bit of what do you expect? I mean, in this particular case, and I'll kind of set it up, and then we can get your opinion and stuff on it. But essentially, you can't use Skype in China. It's banned by the Chinese government for a whole host of reasons. Anyways, we won't get into that. But that opens up an opportunity for fake Skype apps to circulate their way around, because many people in China, and I know this, we have colleagues, friends, partners there. There's a lot of ways around some of these bans, right? You find different application stores and different things to actually download some of these applications. And there's ways to do it. So people are not immune to trying kind of outside the box things to get access to these apps. Anyways, to make a long story short, essentially what happened is they cloned an older version of Skype. They made it look exactly the same. People are downloading it in China. And if you download it on your phone, what it's doing is replacing your wallet addresses with the hackers' wallet addresses. So you won't even know that when you're sending assets around, it's not going to the destination. It'll just end up in the hacker's wallet, which is clearly problematic. Do you guys see a lot of this? Like, do you at Certic, do you guys do a lot of, like, kind of after the fact trying to figure out what the hell these things are? Or how do we prevent more of this from happening from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very interesting question. Well, first of all, I think this is just my personal opinion. Of course, the more restrictions you have, the more you open up to, these types of opportunities, right? Because you have these alternative applications and people are seeking that. And then people with malicious intent take advantage of that particular situation, right? So definitely that is part of the problem, my humble opinion. I mean, in terms of the kinds of scams that we're seeing, I mean, they're really, I mean, this is very common. What I think will also be even more common is, not to change the topic or anything, but with Coinbase and their KYC, we're going to see more addresses that, maybe they don't have a lot of funds in them, but what exploiters will do is they'll sit on that and then they'll just use somebody else's identity, right? Because now you have this KYC process that Coinbase is going to implement. And so I think in general, the types of exploits that we see, they are going to transition a little bit and transform, where it's not just going after the wallets with a lot of funds, right? It could be just as long as somebody has KYC'd and they're somewhat active, then somebody with malicious intent can take control over that specific wallet.
Money laundering, all that.
They want to do, right? Because they don't have to go through the KYC process. This other person has gone through it for them. And that is something that I'm personally am looking at.
That's actually a really interesting point. I wonder if there's what types of solutions can be built to help prevent or reduce the associated costs if anybody's ever successful at some of that stuff. That'd be kind of interesting to figure out. I mean, identity theft is obviously a huge thing globally. There's a lot of stuff with respect to blockchain technology, I think, that will increase the relative security of our personal identities over time. Only once we get rid of this kind of crap. Again, I've been a very outspoken proponent of KYC and permissioning for the space. Whether I like it or not, I think it's the only path forward. And with permissioning comes accountability and many other structures of security we can build on that you otherwise can't if you don't know who people are. So that's obviously pretty important, but there's always going to be, I mean, how many times have you heard from the Nigerian prince that you've inherited like $1 billion? I mean, no matter how sophisticated the world gets, scammers are always going to try to find their way, try to find alternate ways around it. And I think it creates an incredible business for teams like Certic and for many others, because we all need as much security support as we can get. It's not, contract audits obviously are incredibly important, but there's so many of these other risk vectors that we've had the luxury of leaning on many of our risk partners, Certic being one of them, to help us navigate, so to speak. I think that the overarching, lesson, hopefully that people get here, and I've told a lot of my dumbass mistakes over the episodes of the pod. I've lost a lot of money to scams, so none of us are immune to it. But the key is prudence. You just got to pay attention. Be skeptical if something seems too easy or too good or too good to be true. It probably is too good to be true. You're probably not making 100% return per day. And they're probably not going to send you a check every week if you send them some Bitcoin. It's some of these things seem obvious, but I told this story on Friday. I sent 6 ETH to a Binance scam once because they were going to double it. Actually, 10 ETH, not 6. It's because the withdrawals had been paused, and I saw a fake Twitter that looked exactly like Binance and had a similar name, said, hey, if you send this wallet address, we're sorry about the problems. And I sent 10 ETH. Now, this was back when ETH was only worth $150 or something, or $100, or it was cheap. I was still annoyed at the time, but now that's obviously a bigger hit. So my point here is that we're all exposed to these types of risk, and none of us are smart enough to avoid it all the time. But obviously you want to use multi-sigs where possible. You want to use hardware wallets as often as possible. Keep your private keys very, very safe. There's a lot of strategies around that. We're not going to spend all day talking about it, but and hopefully you can avoid some of these phishing scams. Another thing, just quickly, and maybe if you've got some tips, my friend, then go ahead and share them. But I think it's whenever you're transacting on crypto, someone told me early on that you should always do it on a separate device that isn't used for anything else. And so I took that to heart. And so I have a separate set of laptops, a separate set of cell phones, YubiKeys, like hardware, like the whole thing is obviously, because when you operate protocols, you have to be prepared. But do you have like kind of a tips and tricks just for new people getting in? How can they start to learn about this stuff and start to identify some of the scams to avoid?
Yeah, that's actually a really good piece of advice that you gave. I mean, that goes the same thing for banking, right? They always say whenever you're using your mobile banking app, don't connect to the public Wi-Fi. That's another one. When you're storing your private keys, your seed phrase, don't have that on your laptop. Make sure to write that down on a piece of paper. And I don't know, there's probably a lot of great tools out there now that you can purchase to make it easier for you. But whatever you do, don't store it on the computer. I think that is probably the biggest
one. A lot of people for a while were not saving it on your computer, but copy and pasting it to like Word or something and printing it. Well, your printer queue also saves images. Right. And so that was a huge thing, I think, in 2018, 2017, 18, where people were getting, it's orders of magnitude easier to infiltrate the printer queue than it is, other financial apps. And so they were able to get private keys. So all of this to say, what's really, not all of this to say, but what's really cool coming out of this is we're familiar with a couple of projects that are building some really interesting technology for social recovery of private keys, to create social structures, decentralized social structures that if your wallet is exploited, how to recover it. And I think that's going to be a huge step from a user experience perspective in protecting the customer. Hopefully these products come out early enough in this cycle. One of them we're partnering with, so we're hopefully going to be releasing something really exciting from an infrastructure perspective. But yeah, there should just be a lot of focus on how to protect yourself and how to get the resources that you need. And will hopefully add to that product suite. Any final thoughts on that one before we move on?
Well, I was just going to say, and I think we're starting to see an evolution of wallets, right? Like we hear about Binance, they're coming out with their wallet, and it's like a 3-part system where they hold on to 1/3 of the keys, you hold on to 2/3, and not sure what side of the spectrum some of your audience is in terms of the decentralization versus centralization aspect, but they're clearly trying to find this fine line there, right? Between how much control you have versus making it easy, right? Because if you have all that control, how hard do we want to make it for new users to come in, right? Yeah. So it's a good place for most people to learn and then get acclimated and reach that final stage, which is being able to utilize a cold storage wallet.
Yeah, totally agree. I think Coinbase has been doing this for quite some time. When you set up a Coinbase account, you actually don't get your private keys, but you get proper ETH addresses. And now, in particular, if you go on Base, that holds true also. You get a Base wallet address, a functional ETH wallet address, but you've never had any of the private keys. Now, one of the limitations, obviously, there is data security. All of that risk resides with Coinbase because they're the ones holding the private keys. So if they ever were infiltrated somehow. Now, I'd like to think massive publicly traded company, incredible leadership, incredible security teams. Like, I'd like to think that they're unlikely to have issues, but I mean, Shopify was exploited and a lot of data stolen. Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp was exploited, tons of data stolen, like hundreds of millions of user accounts and all of their personal data. Like, it's definitely possible, and it does happen to even the biggest and most prepared companies. So I guess my thought there is, as we're working towards making things easier, we have to make sure we're not reintroducing these massive centralization risks while trying to remove a small onboarding frustration. We should be removing the frustration and not amplifying some of these other risks. So hopefully we can get that right, but I guess we'll see. All right, we're going to talk a little bit. Did you ever use Poloniex?
No, I never have. And to be honest with you, man, I haven't even heard much about it until this, particular exploit, because it is fairly small relative to, the big boys out there like Coinbase and Binance.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Poloniex is not a slouch exchange. I mean, they did 600 some million in volume in the last 24 hours. Yeah. According to the article, anyways. I'm quoting the article, not fact for sure. But yeah, I mean, they're not a small operation. What it was, if I understand correctly, was their hot wallets that were exploited. So maybe I'll set this up and then we can talk about it. But essentially, what happened is there was $114 million stolen from draining of all the hot wallets at Poloniex. It's a really old exchange. They've been around for a minute. It's kind of surprising. Often you expect this stuff from newer exchanges that don't understand the security landscape the same way, but these guys have been around forever. And this kind of seems like, holy crap, your hot wallets were exploited? Like, that totally sucks. But anyways, multiple wallets across a ton of blockchains were targeted. Ethereum wallet had a whole bunch of these transactions and has a whole bunch of tokens. So now we'll talk about this in a minute, kind of what's happened in the wake of all of this. But this is something we saw a good amount of before, centralized exchanges, early on, before we really understood a lot of the security risks in this space. Do you think this is becoming less and less prevalent now? Are we rounding the bend in terms of getting some sort of acceptable standard of security across the space, or are we still Wild Westing it, in your opinion?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think this particular exploit kind of shows that it's still nothing's ever 100% proof, right? But there's definitely, certain measures that security companies are taking in order to ensure that for users, they're utilizing secure exchanges. I'll give you a perfect example. So Certic just came out with a security scoring system. Now, they already have one called Skynet, in which provides you a security score of different projects, but not for centralized exchanges. So now what they're doing is they're looking at the overall security of an exchange. So they're looking at the website, the security of the website. They're looking at the overall security of the projects that they're listing. So I think things like that, these additional resources will help users in preventing or just eliminating, certain exploits like such as this.
Yeah, I mean, how do you feel? I have some thoughts on this, but I think you're by far the expert here. But how do you feel about our ability to trace some of this? So one thing that I've been positive about in the last little bit is we're getting better as a space at how we respond to these things. How does that look to you? Do you think we're getting better? Are we coming up with better ways to catch this before they get completely out of hand? I know there's a lot of good notification platforms now that are providing security risk notifications, ideally in advance. And we have some partners at Benki and Benki Liquid Staking and some of our other projects that it's pretty incredible, the technology now to highlight some of this stuff. What are you seeing? What's kind of your general impression of our evolution here?
I mean, I think that security companies in general have a very good grasp on it. But what I've been really interested in is understanding how is the government adapting to all of this. And I feel like they're adapting pretty well in terms of like beefing up their digital asset space and being able to research. Like, for instance, the team behind SafeMoon, and that exploit, like, well, now they caught them, right? So that's only possible because they're able to trace all of their, transactions. So I think that the government as a whole is making a lot of steps forward in making sure that they say, hey, look, we know this stuff exists. We're doing our part now in being able to trace it, and we're coming after you. Yeah. So that's the part where I feel like has been progressed a lot.
I'm a bit of a broken record on this, but you need a carrot and a stick when it comes to keeping people in line. You need something to draw them towards, and you need something to keep them in line if they get off track, so to speak, from a regulatory perspective. And I think right now we had a carrot in the sense that if you just put that energy towards something useful, you could probably make as much or more money and not have, crazy gangsters wanting to hunt you down and murder you because you stole their money. Fine. But that was always kind of the trade-off that you were thinking about is, do I do this legitimately, or do I maybe not go that route and run the risk? And I think now, in that environment, there was no stick. There was if you got away with it, like if you were able to get the money, you could fence it out and get about 20%, 10 or 20 cents on the dollar of the original stolen amount of capital. Now there's been so much more enforcement lately, and the sophistication, as to your point, is significantly higher than it was before, thanks to a lot of different technologies. Chainalysis, of course, Michael and team are doing some incredible stuff. Elliptic, TRM, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Swift is now coming in and trying to understand forensic tracing. So there's some really, really interesting technologies, and I think it's making it a little less appealing over time for some of these exploits to continue. But
yeah, I mean, to your point, even Certic is getting into the game with Sky Insights. So Sky Insights allows for you to be able to trace, to monitor, and to essentially create an audit trail for yourself when it comes to interacting with OFAC sanctioned countries or addresses that are associated directly or indirectly with exploits. And when you think about a security firm that has a lot of data, like Certic, for instance, uncovering over 60,000 vulnerabilities, they're able to take that data and push it to their clients through Sky Insights. So to your point, you're right. There are a lot more resources now, and it is becoming more. You got to think twice whether or not you want to, do something like that. But the other part of this is, they're offering a 5% reward, I believe.
Like a bounty?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that still on the table? Do you know?
I don't know, to be honest, if they're still offering a bounty. Normally, we use Immunify, which is obviously exploded in the space from, in terms of a bounty platform. A lot of major protocols are on Immunify. Their process has gotten a lot better over the last little bit. And we actually had a lot of a lot of interaction with people on there, people trying to point out, exploit vulnerabilities and all this stuff. A lot of them are wrong or incorrect. But anyways, it's a good plan. And the theory was, if we offer payouts up to 10% relative to the value at risk, then it's a wash. If I'm going to give you 10% and you can not be pursued by law enforcement and everybody else, then you're way better off than still getting 10% after you fence it and being pursued by everybody and their dog and never being able to sleep at night. So hopefully, we're moving in that direction. The one thing that I think will be interesting over the next little bit, and I don't want to belabor this point too much, but the emergence of machine learning and artificial intelligence and these large models, I think it's going to come down to a bit of an arms race, so to speak, and who can make their models better faster. And so if you look at like Hard Hat and GitHub Copilot and some of these other platforms that are laying on AI now, as compute gets more powerful and the cost to compute comes down, we're going to see some both malicious and positive actions, I think, with respect to machine learning. And it'll be interesting to see who wins, because obviously if, as an example, if I wanted to try 100 million known exploit vectors on a platform, I have to have a team of a lot of people and a lot of time. But obviously, as these models evolve, within a matter of probably minutes at some point in the relative near future, you can try all of those exploit vectors on protocols. That's problematic. Although the same thing is true if you're trying to prevent issues. And I think it'll be interesting to see how groups like CertIC and others start to layer on some of that technology, because I think it's really powerful and interesting. I'm not sure if we're there yet in terms of cost of compute, because it's still stinking expensive to do anything at that scale, but it's coming down, and so we'll have to see. Anyways, okay, let's move on. We'll talk a little bit about, this is something that's actually really common, but most people don't talk about it. Common in the sense that it's something that a lot of people, if you've been in the space for a minute, actually think about. And speaking of Turkey, which is where a lot of the crypto world is right now, that's not a surprise to the people that are also potentially looking for ways to heist assets, I guess. They know that everybody is in Turkey. They know that all of these people are traveling. Many people carry their MetaMask in their pocket. Many people carry their hardware wallets when they're traveling, and their core computers. And these are big challenges. Anyways, CZ has unveiled a high stakes heist, and this one I'll let you opine on this after I introduce it here. But it was kind of an interesting one. A client of Binance was abducted during a trip to Montenegro. Again, sounds weird. Sounds like it's like straight out of a movie. But I know a lot of people that walk around with security all the time in the space. I'm not there yet. Hopefully never have to be. But anyways, he was forced to empty his crypto wallets, $12.5 million apparently in crypto. And Binance was able to catch it and freeze the assets. And this kind of lends itself to my point earlier. We're getting better. We're getting better as a space at stopping it, at some of these kind of pinch points, centralized exchanges, fiat off-ramps, tumblers, if that's even a thing anymore. And so we are getting better at this, but I mean, this still highlights the need for personal security practices. Don't carry your MetaMask. Don't carry your hardware wallets with you, obviously. When I say carry your MetaMask, I mean obviously on your phone. Don't have anything not secured by hardware wallets. Is this something you've ever even given any thought to? Like when you travel, is it something that comes up, or is this kind of new?
For me personally, I think this opens up a new form of crime. I mean, you hear stories about different like crypto content creators gone missing, and then they're found in like body bags. Like you hear all these crazy stories, but you never want to believe them. But I mean, I guess this is reality. I talked to Ben Armstrong, who's one of the biggest influencers, and he said, look, crypto is fantasy money. Simple as that. And so if you're walking around with a lot of it, like you said, in your MetaMask, which is on your phone. I never even thought that having my MetaMask on my phone and me just walking the street could potentially put me in danger. But these are the things that we're having to think about now when you hear stories like this. So
well, and I mean, OPSEC is one of those things, operational security. This would probably fall under OPSEC, at least my understanding, is something that is often overlooked. It's, we don't usually build in policies and procedures for this type of thing until it's too late, until we've had a big problem and we go, oh shit, we really need to deal with this. But yeah, it's just one of those things. I think, if somebody put a gun to your head, of course I'm going to give them whatever's in my pocket. So you have to prepare, I think, with that in mind, and just assume that at any point in time, if someone realizes that you're involved in the space and you're at a conference, they see you with a lanyard or a badge, it's pretty obvious who's a crypto bro. And then you get some of us idiots that dress like flashy losers, and myself included. And so then we stand out like even more sore thumbs. And so all of this to say, I think it's really important, just to focus on those, let's call it first principles of personal security. Like, you wouldn't carry $100,000 cash in your pocket and go to the club. Why would you carry your MetaMask? Or if you did have $100,000 cash, you'd probably have a bunch of bodyguards that were armed and locked briefcases and all this other crap. You're not just walking around with it in your pocket or in a backpack, unless you're Floyd Mayweather, who actually does walk around with that much cash. But he also has a team of security. Anyways, so when you're thinking about traveling, even when you're at home, you got to be careful. Look at the lengths people went to back in the day, Bonnie and Clyde, et cetera, risking their lives, high-speed chases, gunfights, all this crazy crap to steal pennies relative to what these crypto exploits are able to do, from a significant distance away. So hopefully we continue to get better, but I do appreciate, and this isn't the first time that CZ has come to the rescue, so to speak. And we're using CZ pretty loosely, that Binance has come to the rescue, because often Binance seems to be one of the common pinch points of people trying to move money around from account to account. So I don't know, it's kind of a little bit of a warm fuzzy just to know that, we are all still focused on this and trying to help as best we can. Again, there's a lot of criticism around freezing accounts and so on. If you're a decentralization maxi, then that's something that you don't necessarily want to see until your money's stolen. When your money's stolen, I suspect you'd have a different opinion on that whole thing. So we'll have to see how that all plays out. Okay, we're going to talk about just one more quick thing. Or do you have a hard stop?
No, I have time.
Okay, just one more quick thing, and then we can wrap for the day, I guess. But let's talk a little bit about this fake BlackRock. So we talked a lot about this over the last, let's call it, week, because BlackRock did and publicly announced that they registered a trust for their ETH ETF application. Sounds like to me, since then, there's been a whole bunch of false filings that are causing a whole bunch of confusion, and people don't really understand what the hell is going on. Have you looked at this at all since it started here in the last 24 hours?
A little bit, yeah. From what I gather, it's not even that difficult to create a fake filing. So that's the scary part. So I think we all just need to be a little bit more vigilant and not be so reactive to the market, because I think we're at a place right now, because it's been the bear market for so long that we're just waiting for any kind of news to come out, and we just want to pounce on it as quickly as possible. So there are a lot of people that are taking advantage of that. And so for that reason, I think we just have to take a deep breath, relax a little bit, and just really let some of this news marinate and see if it's something legitimate.
Yeah. So this fake filing was an XRP trust, and the was implying that there's going to be an XRP ETF applied for right away. And of course, as you can imagine, everybody knee jerks, and XRP rockets 12% within 30 minutes, which is pretty substantial in a relatively short period of time. To your point, I mean, we've got to not be so reactive. If the one thing that I'll tell everybody that asks is, you have time. You're still early. You're not going to miss your one and only shot if you don't ape at that exact second. There's going to be more opportunities to make money in this bull market than you can imagine. So just take your time, do your research, don't get FOMO, don't get driven by too much FUD. Just make sure you have conviction in your plays and that you're managing your risk appropriately and so on and so forth. And I think we'll have a lot more successful cycle if people aren't constantly looking for confirmation bias. Now, I'm as guilty as everybody. And we see Bitcoin shoot up and I'm like, holy crap, right? And you start thinking your natural inclination is, I better take some money off the sidelines and get it in the game here because I'm going to miss. But then again, prudence and objectivity hopefully should prevail and say, okay, just wait a second. Is this a real thing? Is this actually something that is a catalyst for change or for growth? ETH ETF? Absolutely, that would be amazing. Would an XRP ETF be important? I think it would have much less of an impact on the space right now relative to BTC and ETH spot. But yeah, we just got to take all of this stuff with a bit of a grain of salt and just say, hey, is this something that's going to create a ton of value, or is this just a speculative wave? And if it's a speculative wave, what I know with certainty is it's impossible to know what's going to happen next. It's, there's too many factors. Okay, well, I think that was a pretty interesting day. It was great to have you on, Mikhail. Thanks a ton for joining us. Where can people learn more about Certic, yourself? How can they follow and read some of these reports and just make sure that they're making security education a big piece of their time in crypto?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, JD. I would say check out certic.com. There's tons of resources there for those that are a little bit more tech savvy or those that are more a beginner. Check out skynet.certic.com if you want to look at some of the scores of some of these projects. If you're looking to invest in some of these, definitely do your research first. That's a very good resource for that. And then myself, I'm on Twitter, I'm on LinkedIn. I don't know if we can post the.
We'll get the producers to post your links underneath the video, so anybody that wants to check you out can definitely do so.
Yeah, happy to connect with anybody that if you're building something cool, would love to learn, because this space is moving so fast. There's so much innovation happening. So yeah, looking forward to connecting.
Awesome. Yeah, and again, I can't speak highly enough of our experiences with Certic and others. It's surprising how collaborative people are still in the space and how willing to share your learned experiences with each other and try to find a good solution. It's been a lot of fun. It's still a lot of fun building with many of the people that are here because it is so kind of collaborative and there's a really good community of ethical builders, I think, that just continues to grow. So it's pretty exciting. All right, quick reminder, we're a live show Monday to Friday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern. Lately, we've had some incredible guests. I'm not sure when the next guest is, but I know we have a bunch over the coming few weeks. And then Kiara's on vacation. So it's all guests all the time. I actually have to earn my paycheck one of these days, assuming I get a paycheck. Okay, so have a great rest of the day, everybody. And with that, I say to you guys, go FUD yourself.
Take care.
Later.